Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back from the ad break. You are still watching Prime Live. Now, we are joined today by Sarfraz Bismilla, a representative from the 360 Padel, and he's here to discuss the thrilling Gayle SA Invitational Padel Tournament that happened or took place this past weekend. Now, Sarfraz and Riaz will be also sharing all the juicy details on who won and how the tournament played out and what made this event, or what was the highlight of this pedal. I mean, if you have been watching Prime Live for the past few weeks, you do know that this is a familiar face, and we did have a discussion with the both of them. But today we are joined particularly by Sarfraz, who will be giving us all the details of this beautiful pedal. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah so much for joining us on Prime Live.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you very much for having me.
You are welcome. Now, we know that this pedal or tournament attracted a lot of attention, from players and spectators alike. Can you tell us more about the biggest highlight of this event?
I think in terms of highlights, the opportunity for the South African players to perform on a stadium platform was pretty special. It's hard to look past that player walkout and opening ceremony with the anthems on the Friday afternoon. I thought that was pretty incredible. I think the player meet and greets over the course of the weekend were also super special. And then I think just the general level of play that the players brought, introducing the South African public to a new level of paddle, I think that was awesome. And then I just think the occasion, the sense of jubilation that swept over the venue for the full 3 days, I thought was absolutely magical.
And I do know that there were obviously celebrity appearances. Can you please maybe highlight that for us, and also just remind the viewers at home who actually attended from celebrities?
Yeah, look, I think from a celebrity perspective, it's hard to look past the players. I mean, again, I must point out we had, paddle royalty in attendance. You had someone who was a world #1 for about 17 years in Fernando Belasteguin, widely regarded as the best player to have ever picked up a racket. You had the current world #1s, Agustin Tapia and Arturo Coelho. You had the poster boy for paddle, who's a crowd favorite in South Africa, Ale Galan, the biggest smasher in the world, Leo Augsburger, and of course, the nicest guy in paddle, the absolute best guy you'll ever meet in your life, in Momo Gonzalez.
That's beautiful. Now, can you tell us, after this massive event, what do you think sets this tournament aside or different from other tournaments that have been hosted?
I would say the matchups, the way in which the tournament was constructed, the fixtures, the way in which that was put together, I think captured the attention as well as the imagination of a global audience. I think these are the matches that the world wanted to see. You don't generally get these types of matches on a Premier Padel calendar, keeping in mind that the event was, of course, broadcast all through Africa and streamed globally. It really introduced South Africa to a global audience. And so I think it was important that we understood the moment, and I think this is what we gave to the world.
And tell us about, I think people also attend tournaments or events like these because of the atmosphere. What was the atmosphere like for those who didn't attend? And also, what do you think was different specifically about this atmosphere that was provided at the pedal?
I think what really stood out for me was that you had people from all walks of life, different ages, coming from different regions in the country, representing different clubs, holding different belief systems, all coming together and being completely focused on that 20-by-10 court in absolute awe of what they were seeing. Again, I must stress it's important to understand who we had on the court. You had literally the greatest player to ever pick up a racket. You had the current world #1s. You had the best players in the world. And so I think the players certainly played their part in making this a memorable event. And then also, again, I must stress it was important to give the South African players that platform as well, and assist in making them household names.
That's amazing. And how many people were there?
I think we had the largest audience in South African paddle history. We're talking about a crowd of about 15,000 people over the course of the 3 days, which is unprecedented in South African paddle. It's important to understand of course, we had an iconic venue. It's a 30,000-seater capacity stadium, but of course, we had only sort of demarcated a specific area of the stadium. It was wonderful to see people come out in such large numbers. Definitely the largest crowd in South African paddle history. Yeah.
That's amazing. And obviously the paddle in South Africa is still a growing sport. And after this tournament, how do you see or envision it growing, within the South African community?
I think events like this really endear the sport to the watching audience. I think it makes the players much more accessible. It makes them more recognizable, and it gives it a sense of reality. I think a lot of people would have been fascinated by what they saw this weekend, and a lot of people will be stepping onto a court sometime this week trying to emulate an Agustin Tapia or an Arturo Coelho or even a Luan Kricher or a Yasser Asamo for that matter.
And are there any future events that we can expect from the Gayle SA Invitational Pedal?
Look, I think one step at a time is always good walking. But I think certainly from the players' perspective, I don't think they expected the type of adulation that they had received. I don't think they expected the sport to be received in the way that it has in South Africa. And so they were absolutely blown away by the reception that they received here in Johannesburg. And I think a lot of the players have already committed to a South African Invitational version 2.0.
Mm. And I think the biggest question is who won? For those who didn't attend and who
Yeah.
didn't watch it, who won?
I think on the court in the South African Championship, Luan Krige and Jason Blakey Milner walked away with the title. And then on the international side, Team Los Galacticos, comprising of Bella, Galan, Coelho, Stupa, Cardona, and of course Guerrero took the title. But ultimately, I think Paddle won. When you consider that this event was, broadcast across Africa as well as to a global audience, I think it really showcased what South Africa is capable of. I think it really said to the world that South Africa is capable of hosting a premier paddle style event, and that's really, really exciting for the future.
That's amazing. And we do know that paddle is often described as a very social sport. At the tournament itself, did you experience that, meaning people interacting with each other, supporting each
Yeah.
other during the sport?
Absolutely. I think the meet and greets with the players was a prime example.
Yes.
It was lovely to see so many smiles and faces, particularly amongst the older audience by comparison to the younger guys. And I think the players understood the assignment, the international players. I think they knew that they had a sort of a social responsibility to make sure that everybody got a photograph or something like that. So they were happy to post for thousands of photos. I think as an organizer, safety and security is obviously one of the big priorities for an event like this. And we, of course, try to make sure that that is in place at all times. And then you get a guy like Mike Yangwas, number 7 in the world. But I think he was so captivated by the reception that he had received. At some point, he just took a walk around the stadium unaccompanied just so that he could go and interact with people and engage with the fans. And that was, so refreshing to see and to experience.
And what would you say is your favorite thing about paddle as a sport?
I would say the possibilities. It's always important to understand we are still in the infancy of our paddle journey, 3.5 years into this journey. But I think we've got good things happening at the moment. We've got a really high level competition, which is the national level league in South Africa, which is concluding over the weekend. It's called the 360 Paddle Diamond League. We've got regional leagues taking place in Johannesburg, Pretoria, Durban, and soon to be in Cape Town. And then international events like this really serve to elevate the profile of the sport. So it makes for a really exciting time for the present as well as for the future of paddle in South Africa.
And just in closing, also, obviously, when you guys were here, you explained how challenging it is to actually plan such a huge tournament. Now, obviously, you have gone through the event, and alhamdulillah, it was a success. Would you say it was all worth it? The way the event turned out, was it everything that you've expected?
Look, I think we had articulated what the challenges were on our last visit, but really, I think the challenges just fueled the vision. It made everything worth it, and I think in hindsight, I sit here and I wonder what took us that long.
Mashallah, that's beautiful. I do hope that you guys can consider maybe hosting more of these, because clearly it was a success and people loved it. And inshallah, with that will be the growth of paddle in South Africa. Is there anything else that you'd like to share to viewers at home before we let you go?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've got some really, really exciting things happening. We had announced earlier on this week that 3 of the stars who featured this week have already committed to an SAI version 2.0. So keep an eye on our platforms. There are some really, really exciting things and maybe some new players in line for the next one.
Alhamdulillah, viewers at home, that was an amazing conversation that I just had with Sarfraz Bismilla, and we were talking about the Gayle SA Invitational Padel Tournament that happened this past weekend, and what a success it actually was, and all the beautiful players that were there, and exactly why you should have never missed it. That's the whole point. But inshallah, may Allah grant them strength to continue, doing the great work, but also so that they can continue, spreading the sport of paddle amongst the people, so that maybe one day we can also see it becoming, the main sport in South African, sports, platforms. But without wasting any time, it's time for us to head over to a quick break. We'll see you right after this.